Go 1.26 will be released in February, and one small change that I really like is the elegant change to the new function. Therefore, in this video we are going to quickly talk about this change and what it really means for you as a Go engineer. Now let's get quickly over the TLDR of this new change. So if you don't have enough time, let's quickly look at what changed in Go 1.26, and let's quickly take a look at the code we have to write before Go 1.26. So before Go 1.26, we would have to use the new function to just kind of reserve a free spot in memory for example, an integer. So let's just imagine that we have a variable right here called p, and we would like to not initialize a value right now. We would just like to reserve some memory for this p variable. Now what we can then do is something like new and then int. So right here, this new function just tells Go to find this free spot in memory for this integer. So then it just allocates memory and initializes it with the 0 value for an integer, which in this case is just 0. Right here we just then save that address in the variable p. So p isn't the number itself, it's the address to find the number in memory. And what we can do now to kind of allocate a value to our p variable, or to the address that is allocated in our memory for the p variable, is we could just dereference p and then assign a value like 42. So right here we are dereferencing p, which just means that we are not looking at the address anymore, but we look at where p is pointing to. And then we go to this memory address and store the number 42 in it. Quite simple, right? And then we can just fmt.println this dereference p, so we just print the value right here, not the memory address. So let's just run this main.go file right here, and the result will be 42. Now with Go 1.26, Go actually improves on that, because now the new function can take in an expression as well, which then in the end really means that it immediately initializes the memory with that value. So we don't have to dereference p in this case and assign 42, we just can use the new function directly. So what we can say is just remove this line and just say 42 right here. Now right now the result will be the same, but the compiler sees this 42 as an expression here and knows it's an integer. Then it creates the memory, fills it with 42 and gives you the pointer p all in one step. So if we would run this with the Go 1.26 compiler right here, we would get the same result back. Now that we know what the change is, you might wonder why this is actually useful. Now this can be especially helpful if you use pointer fields in a struct to represent optional values that you marshal to JSON or protobuf. So let's just have a quick example right here. Let's just remove p and the fmt.println, and then what we can say is we can declare a new user struct. Now let's just imagine that this user represents our database record, and then we can say username string, and then maybe you also have a retry limit, which is an integer, and then it is active flag, which is a boolean in this case. All right, cool. Then maybe we can also have like an update settings param struct. So let's just say update settings params right here, and then struct. Now this is just the structure we would receive from the API request. And right here we would have like the retry limit, for instance, right, which would be a pointer integer, and then we would have the JSON struct tags right here. So we just say JSON and then retry limit, and then we say omit empty, and we do the same thing for the isActive flag. This will be a pointer boolean, and then we have isActive as a JSON tag right here. Okay, so why would you use pointers right here? Just to distinguish between, for example, 0 and missing. And if retry limit is nil, this could really mean that we do not really want to update this field. And on the other hand, if the retry limit is 0, which is then stored at a pointer, this could just mean that we set the limit to 0. And without pointers, a missing field will default to 0 and will potentially wipe out the user's data. So in the end, we want to distinguish between a 0 value and a missing value for this update settings params struct. Okay, and then what we could have is just a patch user function, right? And we expect a user pointer right here. And then this would also have like the updates, which is of type update settings params. And then we just check if the retry limit is not equal to nil, then we just update the retry limit inside of our user. So we say retry limit is equal to the dereference of updates.retry limit. We'll do the same thing for our isActive flag. So we say updates is active and then u is active and then updates is active, right? So we can imagine that this patch user function can really work with calls over the network by using the update settings param struct. And this function should really demonstrate partial updates, which would be a patch HTTP method, and only should change fields that are present or not really nil in the params, right? And then in the logic of our function body right here, we just check if the retry limit was actually provided in the request. And if the retry limit is nil, it just means the caller didn't really want to change it. In reality though, you would probably add a few checks right here to validate the individual fields beforehand. For example, preventing negative numbers for the retry limit, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then again, to update this, we are just dereferencing to grab the actual integer value of that pointer and assign it to the retry limit, or respectively to the isActive flag. So let's demonstrate this behavior right here in the main function. And let's just set up a dummy user, which we will call dbuser. And this will be a user struct. Let's just say username is equal to Alice, and then retry limit is like 10. And then we have an isActive flag, which will be false. I'll quickly show you how to actually provide a value to this update settings params before Go 1.26. So all we actually had to do is redeclare this new retry limit up here. Let's just say it's 20. And then we would call this function, right? The patch user function. We would pass in the dbuser and then the update settings params. And then we would say retry limit, because it is a pointer, it expects an actual memory address, which in this case could be the memory address of the new retry limit right here. And then after that, let's just maybe marshal this whole thing, and then in the end let's just print the marshal data right here. Now again, before Go 1.26 we are kind of forced to create a temporary variable just to get a pointer, which just adds noise in the end. This right here would just not work because it would expect a pointer or a memory address instead of a raw value. And again, isActive is not passed in, so it just stays nil, which would mean that the user is still inactive, and we keep the isActive value right here. Okay, let's just run this program. And obviously we need to kind of stringify the data right here. So let's just do this and then run the program again. And what we'll see is the username, which is Alice. The retry limit is 20, which worked quite well because we've updated the retry limit, and isActive is still false. Now let's just update this logic right here with Go 1.26. What we could easily do with Go 1.26 is just remove this, and then we could say new and then 20 directly. This would work fine. So right here, if we just run with Go 1.26, the retry limit is still 20, but right now it's just cleaner. And this can become really useful for complex unit tests or large API clients where you are kind of initializing structs with a lot of fields and you want to avoid these temporary variables, which in the end just saves significant visual noise and typing as well. So let's just quickly demonstrate this by just adding a few tests to our main.go file, right? So what we can do in main_test is just add a test patch user function, and we would obviously use testing t. And now we are just adding a few table-driven tests right here. So instead of writing code for every test, we just define a list of cases, and each case just has a name, an input like the initial input, and then also the updates, for instance, and an expected output as well. So we can say initial right here, then we say updates, which is of type update settings params, and then expected, which is of type user, right? So it looks something like this. So let's add like 2 cases or something. I will quickly do this offline, right? So right here we do have the test case, which should update all the fields with new values, and then the second test case would just be a partial update to just update the retry limit and ignore the isActive flag. And what is still missing is like the retry limit right here and also the isActive value, right? These 2 values are kind of missing because we didn't define them. Now again, right here we just have to point to the variables, and we cannot use raw values right here. So before Go 1.26, we would actually do something like this, 0 and then false val, which would be false. And here we are just kind of forced to create these helper variables just so we have a memory address to point to. And then we can just test these 2 cases by just looping over them. So we say test case and then range cases, and then right here we just create a subtest for each case. And if one just fails, it won't really stop the others from running. So we say tc name as the test case name and then function right here. And then we just get the initial value for our user. So we are kind of copying it to our user variable right here. Then we try to patch the user, right? So we want to run the function we are actually testing, and then with the tc.update, so the updates we've defined in each test case. And then if user is not equal to tc.expected, we just say t.errorf got %+v and then expected %+v as well, user, and then tc.expected. Now it's important to highlight that we really check if the result matches our expectation with this line or with this if condition right here. And it's important to highlight that the structs can be directly compared only if they don't contain incomparable types like slices, maps, or functions. And the user struct right here only really contains basic types, so direct comparison is safe. And then we could just test basically our main test file and it would be okay and all the test cases would pass. But obviously with Go 1.26 we can now adjust this, so we can remove these two temporary variables right here, and then we can say for the retry limit right here we could just say new 0, and for the false value we could just say new false, and then right here same thing, new 0, because the new function in Go 1.26 now can also accept an expression. And if we would just test this code again right here, we get actually the same result back, which is really cool, but we've cleaned up a few things, which is really handy as well. Now I think now it's quite clear that Go 1.26 cleans up a few things with this new function, which now takes in an expression and we can clean a few temporary variables up that we don't really need in the end. And that is everything you need to know about this small but pretty handy change. Now if you also want to find out what an empty struct in Go really means, then feel free to check out this video here. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, have a lovely day and bye bye.